Hello, my name is Balaji. You can call me Proton, and I'll be taking you through the setup for your bill booking application. Sit back and enjoy. So the first thing that we're going to do is to create our repository on GitHub. Now, because we're going to be following the single repository principle, what this means is that like we would have both our front end and our back end in the same repository. So the first thing I would like to do is to clone this repository. So if you have Git set up on your system, you can clone the repository with the command git clone, then the URL of the repository. So you can see it here, git clone, and I'm just going to copy the URL of the repository here. Now, once that is done, I can cd into it. Now that I'm inside the directory, the first thing I want to do is to open the directory with my code editor. I'm making use of Visual Code, but you can make use of Sublime, you can make use of Atom, whatever works for you. So I will just start by putting in several things like the README, which is just going to be containing the title called Mail Booking Application. The README at some point will contain instructions on how to set up the app and also any other installation instruction that you need. And whatever you would like to add there. Yeah, then I could add things like the git ignore, because for things that like I don't want to push to GitHub, things like my node modules and whatever thing comes up later, I can always add it here. Now once I'm done with that, I use the git status in my terminal to check what has been changed, the things that have been changed. I can see that like I have my readme.md and my git ignore. So what I need to do is use the git add command to add everything that is there. Then I use the git commit, and I can call this my initial commit, since this just basically adds like the dummy things that I need to the repository. So I'm making use of Vim. So basically, if I want to edit in Vim, I press the I and I can type in whatever I want to type in. And once I'm done, I hit the escape key and colon WQ, then enter, and it saves. Then once this is done, I can push to my repository using the command git push origin master, because I want to push to the master branch. Now, sometimes you don't remember which branch you are on. This doesn't happen often, but I just don't like to make mistakes. So you can also use the word ed. Now, what ed does is that like it just that pushes to the current branch that you're on. So regardless of whatever branch you're on, you don't have to remember the name. So say for example you have a branch that has a very long weird name. You don't have to type out the name in full. You can just use ed. Ed basically tells Git that like, hey, I want to push to the current branch that I'm on. So I will do git push origin ed, and you will see that like it's going to push it to the master branch. Now you can see from here it's saying ed is equals to master because that is the current branch. So if we come here and we refresh our application, you can see in there we have our git ignore and we have our readme. Next thing we want to do is create two different folders, one for the backend and one for the front end. So I'll create the backend first. Let's call it API, and which is what we're going to be working on fully. And the one for the front end, which is what the user sees. Let's call it front end. Now inside the front end, we can just add an HTML that just contains like basic things. I mean, something as simple as hello world is enough. Yep. And inside the API, what we need to do is set up our API. So the first thing we want to do is cd into our API folder, right? And we do npm init. So you can do npm init and basically start entering the information one by one. So the name of the package name, we can call it mode booking API, since it's the API we're working on. Okay, so it has to be all lowercase, version 1.0. So you can just press enter if you don't want to enter anything or you want it to default. A simple meal booking API should, it's my own description. Entry point, let's assume it's index.js. Test command, we can leave that for now. Git repository, I can just copy it from here. Keywords, I would say meal, food, chop, chow, whatever you want to put there. License, yes, and yes, this is okay. So if we go to our API, we can see the package.json. Now we haven't been adhering to a Git workflow. So moving forward, we'll be going on with that. But before doing anything, let's try and save the changes that we've made so far. So let's go back up one level and we can do a Git status to see what has changed. We can see that like we have two new folders, the API and the frontend. So we can just add the two of them with the git add command. So using the dot tells Git that like every new file that is there, just add it. And if you want, you can specify the files differently, the folder or the file differently if you want. It's still the same thing as just doing this. So I'm going to do this and commit. My commit message is initialize API and frontend. So moving forward, we'll be working in branches. Now let's push to add, which add should resolve to master, as you can see here. Now, when we refresh this, we should be able to see our changes now. As you can see, we have our API folder with the package.json. This is everything that we have here. And we have our front end with the index.html, which you can see here. This is progress so far. So the next thing that I want to do now is to now start working from branches and raising pull requests to work on them. Basic setup. What we have to do next is now start installing our application, our dependencies and bootstrapping an Express application. So I'll be creating a new branch with the command git checkout -b, and I'm going to call this feature bootstrap Express application. Now you can see that my terminal already shows the name. So if I do get git branch, in case your terminal is not showing the branch that you're on, you can do a git branch and it will show you the name of the branch that you're on. You can press Q to escape the editor. So what I want to do now is cd into the API folder and install npm install Express. Use the -- save. So you can type npm install in full and you can use npm I. It's just a shortcut for it. Once this is done, if you come into the package.json, you would see that Express is there. So because we don't want these our node modules to be shipped to be pushed to GitHub, we have to ignore it from our git ignore file. So we can, since we're going to have two separate node modules for the API and for the frontend. So we can do something like API/node modules to ignore the node modules in the API, and the one that we're going to have in the frontend in the future will be ignored by this. So now that we have our Express Now that we have the express dependency installed, sorry, what we need to do now is to create our entry point, which is index.js. And with this, we can basically start bootstrapping our application. But before I go into that, I would want to set up ESLint. So ESLint is like a style guide, not really a formatter, but a linter that enables you to like adhere to like styles. So to install ESLint, we would need to install the actual ESLint package, and we install the configuration that we want to use. So we're going to be using ESLint config Airbnb base, which is the recommended configuration to be used. Sorry, I'm using yarn instead of npm. So let me just change that back to npm install. npm is just like yarn, but I just prefer to use yarn most of the time. Then use the dash dash save dash dev, because it's a dev dependencies, which means that like we don't want to have ESLint in production. We only need ESLint when we are on the dev environment. So that's why I'm using dash dash save dash dev. So you'd see that like once when this will be installed, when this is done installing, it will not be in the same place as the dependencies. As you can see here, is in the dev dependencies, which is telling it that like, okay, these dependencies are only required when you're on development environment and not when you are on production environment. So the next one to do is to create an ESLint configuration file. People usually use ESLint RC, some people use ESLint RC.json. Whatever works for you is fine, totally. And all we have to do is to tell it where to extend the configuration from. Um, so as you saw, we installed the ESLint configuration of Airbnb base. So basically what we're just telling it here is that like, hey, ESLint, we want you to extend the configurations that are in Airbnb base. So this is the you can Google Airbnb base. You can it's so here is what the Airbnb's configuration looks like. And so we can check out some of the rules here. And basically it's just a bunch of like linting rules that like it expects your JavaScript to adhere to. So my internet is a bit slow, but I guess we can come back to that. Yeah. So that's all for the ESLint configuration. And if you have your VS Code or Sublime or Atom configured, well, you should immediately be able to pick up whatever you're working with. Well, now that that has been done, what we want to do next is basically bootstrap our Express application. And we're going to like create a simple Express app with just one endpoint, and we're going to test it using a tool called Postman. Some of you might be aware of what Postman looks like. This is what it looks like. You can go ahead and download Postman from the internet. I think you could just Google Postman and it should take you to like, yeah, getpostman.com, which should work fine. So you can download that and install on your system, whether you're using a Mac, Windows PC, or Linux. It should be able to install fine. So let's get straight to development. So the first thing we want to do is import the Express package which we have installed with the npm command. So we can do that. So this is basically saying I want to require Express, and I want you to assign the value of this to the variable Express. As simple as that. The next thing we want to do is basically create an app, which is just an instance of the Express package that we have installed. Then we want to define our ports. You can use any port you like. 9001 is what I like to use most of the time. Then you can tell your app that like you want it to listen on the port. So we want the app to listen on the port 9001, and we can add like a simple callback here, function, basically just to like see something to like know that like the app is working. So we can say server is running on port. So we concatenate this. So you should display server is running on port, whatever is the port number that we're using. Yeah, so this is basically an express application, just 9 lines. But what we want to do now is to test this out. We need to like add routes. So how do we then add routes? Basically going to be adding route to like this app instance, because the app instance is like what controls the API. The app instance is basically the application, the old API and stuff. So we'll be looking at how we would add routes, since we can now listen on a particular port. So everything is taking shape slowly. So now to add our endpoint, it's as simple as just doing app.get. Then this method takes in two arguments. The first one is the pattern for the URL. We just want it to like go to like the root, the index route. Then we pass in a function here, request and response. Or we can do something as simple as return response.send. So basically just sending a string. The API is working. Then what we need to do now is to start our application. Because we'll be making changes over and over again, I would advise that we'd install a library called NodeMon, which basically auto reloads the application whenever you make changes. So it listens for changes whenever you make any change to any file. It just basically restarts your app. So instead of having to like run node, and whenever you make a change you quit the server and have to run it again, NodeMon takes care of that for you by just automatically restarting the application. Once NodeMon is done installing and we test out our endpoint, what we'll do next is to basically start making use of ES6 syntax, like arrow functions, import, using actual import statement instead of require express and stuff. So let's test out the application with NodeMon index.js, and we can see our message server is running on port 9001. We can test this out by going to our local host and checking port 9001. Oh, sorry, 9001, and we can see our text. The API is working. This is good. Now we need to start making use of ES6 syntax like arrow functions and the likes. To do that, we would need to install. So first we kill our server, and we need to install a couple of things. So usually I add this to my dev dependencies, because usually in production you wouldn't need all these things. But sorry, I need to use npm install. But for now, I guess we can just install everything as they come. So we install Babel core, Babel CLI, Babel node, Babel preset env, then Babel. I think this is about everything. This should do. So while that is installing, we need to create our configuration for Babel. And if you don't know what Babel is, just you can think of it as a transpiler. Just think of it as like, transpile basically helps you to like compile your JavaScript to like say you can convert from ES6 to ES5, from ES7 or ES8 to ES5, or whatever version you want to compile it to. So it's really cool, and it's kind of makes life easier for everyone. So all these things are needed, and in the Babel config, we just need to specify is the preset that we're using, and the preset installed here is Babel preset env. So we can just keep this Babel and just copy just preset env, and that works fine. But I think, okay, yeah, for this new version of Babel you have to copy everything. Yeah, my bad. So we do this, and basically we change our command for starting the application now. So instead of having to type out long commands, we can go to the package.json and add our own script. We can delete what is there and add a start script, which before was node1 index.js. But now what we want to change it to, we want to change it to use Babel. So basically, why using node1? We tell it that like, hey, node1, we want you to execute this using Babel node that has been installed. And what is the file that you want to use? You want to run it on. The name of the file is index.js. And if we try it now with npm start, yeah, everything works fine. So we can basically make use of arrow functions and whatever new thing ES6 has to offer. So we can change this to import express from express. We can change this to make use of arrow functions. Arrow functions are just cooler, way cooler. This guy too, yeah. Arrow functions. We can make use of screen concatenation here. So basically do something like server is running on port. Yep. So let's try this out now. Everything works fine. Let's hit our endpoint. Works fine. This is great progress. So I noticed we skipped through our Git workflow a bit. So we'd have to pause here for a bit and push our latest changes to GitHub. So the name of our branch says feature Bootstrap Express app, but we've also done some things like configuring ES6. So I guess we can classify that under bootstrapping Express application, an Express application, sorry. So basically we can do a git add all, then git commit, and so actually if you don't want to you can, if you have like a one line commit message, you can use the -m flag. So -m and put it in quotes. Say bootstrap express application. So instead of having to type git commit over and over again and having to edit it in your Vim or something, you can just do this instead. Okay, I think there's something I'm missing. Oh, okay. So then we can push to the head. Now you would see that like the head will not point to master again because we are in a different branch. So as you can see from here, head is pointing to feature Bootstrap Express application. So if we come to our GitHub page and we reload it, we can see that like we have a new branch. So if we go to the branch, we can see all the changes that we've made. I use this extension called Octotree to like view changes from here. So you can see everything that we've added. Now to get these changes into your master branch, you can just create a pull request. And you can leave the name as it is, Bootstrap Express application. And you can add the description. This is a PR to Bootstrap is simple Express application. And it's as simple as that. If you have reviewers, you can assign them, but that's usually if you are working in a team. And when you are done, you can merge your PR. So you can see like Bolaji wants to merge one commit into master from this guy. You can change the base branch if you have more than one branch if you want. So but we are merging to master here. So we merge this and we can delete the branch. So if we check our master, we'll see everything is up to date. So we can check out back to our master branch and we can pull to get the latest changes. Simple as that. And then we can check out to a new branch if we want. Now, which brings me to like the next thing we want to work on. Now, what we would work on next thing we want to do is creating our models. And now, what is a model? A model is just simply the schema for which you want data to be stored. So we'll be creating the model for our meals. Um, okay, so I've created a new branch, and I'm just going to go to the API and create a new folder called models. So we can then have a file called meal.model.js. I like appending the exact title of the file to it because, as you would see, we'll be creating. Oh yes, I'm supposed to install ESLint plugin import. ESLint plugin import. Sorry about that. That skipped my mind. So as you will see, as we keep moving on, we have like several mail.js. So by the time we are done with creating our models, we will create our routes, and inside the route we'll probably have a mail.model, a mail.js, sorry, and so it becomes confusing when you are searching through. So I usually like to append the actual purpose of the file here. So as you can see, this is a model, and this helps you to like know that like okay, this is this particular mail.js, this is what it does. So basically, for our models, because we are not using an actual database, we are going to be storing it in memory. We can just use the concept of classes for now. We can use classes, we can use just regular object and just keep pushing it. But because we want the data that we are saving to adhere to a certain schema, I'm proposing we make use of classes. So we can create a class called meal, and basically with just a constructor, and a meal is going to have an ID, which is null initially. Um, Email is going to have a name, which should be null initially. Email is going to have a size, which should be null initially. Email is going to have a price, which should be null initially. Then the last thing, um, doesn't necessarily have to have a currency because that's more of like the caterer end of things. So basically, an ID is a unique identifier, the name of the meal, say rice and beans, amala, or whatever. So size, you can have small size, medium size, large size. Then the price, how much it costs. So this is like a good way to start. And yeah, we're done creating our model. So we're almost done with this particular task. What that's left to do is just to export um, this class so that we can always access it whenever we need to. And then yeah, so we can check the git status. So we have to go back up one level. Okay, I think we can stay here. So we can do a git add and do our git commit, and we say create meal model because there are several models that we will still have to create, like the user model, the caterer model. Okay, no, the caterer is the type of user. So the user model, the meal model, the order model, that is for when someone orders something. So there are several models that we still have to create for this to work. Then what is left is for us to push git push origin head as usual. Then once that is done, we can reload this and we should see our branch. Yep. So we can call it create mid model. Yes. So we raise a pull request to merge to master, and once this is done, we can merge the pull request and delete branch. Also, I have this habit of deleting branches once I merge because I mean I don't know what else they are doing there. Um, so we can check out back to master. So we get the latest changes. So we'll do a git pull to pull the latest changes from master. Then the next thing we want to do is the next task we want to work on is actually creating the services for meals. So create meal service. So like basically what is going to be handling like how basically how the whole voting for meals is going to go about. Um, so it's just like it's a branch of the model. So if we are doing like if we are using SQLize or something, this is where you define. This is the logic for creating an actual model, getting a model, um, getting an instance of the model. Sorry, um, deleting the model or deleting an instance of the model. Sorry, and updating an instance of the model. So we want to create a new service. Oh, sorry, we're meant to add an hyphen b. Now, once that is done, we can then go back to our code editor and create another file called services, and we can call it mail.service.js. So basically, we define everything that has to do with mails here. So we can create like an object called mail service, and we can basically have the first method called fetch all mails, which is basically going to return every mail that we have there. So we need data to like populate this table. So what we can do is create another folder called utilities. I usually call that utils. Then we can call this dummy data.js. So it's just basically a JSON object that contains dummy data for everything. So we can have meals, different meals that we need. So we have ID of one, name, we can call it fried rice. Uh, so this should be export default. Name should be fried rice. Size should be medium. Then price. I mean, how much will you buy fried rice? Say 450 or whatever amount you choose to buy it. So we're going to have like a couple of this. So the ID must be unique, as you know. So this goes like this, and basically change this to 2. Let's call this jollof rice large. Oh, sorry, large. Let's say this is 550. Then we'll call this beans small. Let's call this 150. Incrementing the ID by 1 every time. 4. And which food should we have here? Let's say about semo medium size. Let's say 300. I mean, it should be that cheap, man. So we can just import our dummy data here using import dummy data from. We'll go up one level to the utils folder and we import the dummy data. So basically we are saying go up one level, then we enter the services folder. So go up one level, then it comes into the API folder. Then look for the folder called utils. Then inside utils, look for dummy data. We don't have to put .js there because JavaScript already knows it's a JS file. I mean, if you don't put it there, it assumes it's a JS file. I mean, so basically we are looking, what we need to return is dummy data.meals, which is an array of meals. So we can just say return dummy data.meals, which is basically every meal that is in the system. So this is for fetch all meals. Then we can do something like a add meal method, which is basically going to be so let's assume we have a meal. This meal is going to be an object that is containing everything that is here. Yeah, so one thing we should do is that like we should make sure that like this meal are there to the model that we have created. So we can do something like return this and basically do like a dot map. A dot map basically creates an array, a resulting array from what you have here. So we can do something for each meal. So make it an instance of the meal model. So we can call this new meal is equals to new meal. So my VS Code has this IntelliSense thing where it automatically imports um, classes, variables, and all for you. So basically, what it did for me is import the meal model that I've created, and for every item in this meals, it creates a new instance of a new meal, and we assign that instance to new meal. So what we want to do now is to make sure that like what we have here is an instance of that model. So new meal.id is equals to the iterated meal.id. Um, the new meal.name is equals to the iterated meal.name. So new meal.size is equals to the meal.size, and new meal.price is equals to meal.price. Let me just quickly show you how the dot map works for those of us that like don't know how it works exactly. So just 1 minute. So let's assume you have an array called scores, which is basically the number 70, 90, 100, 10, 30. And you want like a resulting array that is basically all these scores, each and every one of them divided by 2 or 5, because they're all divisible by 5. So you can create a new variable called divisible score is equals to scores dot map. So a dot map goes iterates through each and every item in the array, and we are saying that like for each score, sorry, we want you to return score divided by 5. So if you come to log divisible score now, basically you should be having something like 20, 24, I think 24. This are 20. So this cannot be 24. This is 14. 14. This should be 18, 20, 2, and 6. Yes. So basically, loop through the each item in the array and create a new array from it. That's what the dot map does. So which is what we have done there. Loop through each and every meal and create a new instance because we want it to adhere to our model structure. And basically, so you can assign this to a variable called you can call this one valid meals, and all we are doing at the end is just returning the valid meals. So you can leave the return statements here if you want, but I felt it might be a little bit confusing, so that's why I brought it here. Now to add a meal, what we want to do is to go through this array, look for the last item in the array, and check the ID of the last item. And basically when you check the ID of the last item, you want to increment it by 1. So let's work on the logic for adding a meal. So what we want to do is we want to fetch we'll first check the length of data, that is the length of the dummy meal data length, or we can call it meal length. I think that's more descriptive. Meal length is equals to dummy data dot meals dot length. And basically what we want to do is we want to check the ID. So we'll call this last ID, last ID of the last meal that was there. That's what we want to check for. So we can do dummy data dot meals, then get the meal as index meal length -1, which is the last meal, and we want to get the ID basically. So let me show you what I'm doing here. If I want to get the last item of this array, I can do So if I do scores.length will give me the number of items in the array. And if I do scores into bracket, call it to like get the item at a particular index, length minus 1, it will give me the item, the last item in the array, which is 30, as you can see. So all we need is the ID. So the last ID is this, and we just say const new ID is equals to last ID plus 1. Then we want to create a new instance of, so we create new mail, which is a new instance of the mail model. So we can say mail.id, which is the object, is equals to new ID. And here we can say new mail.id is equals to mail.id. So basically everything that we've done here over again. So I'm just going to copy it. Yeah. But actually we don't really need to do this. We don't need to do this. We can just do a push directly to the dummy data. So dummy data dot news dot push. Then we'll push the mail to it. And we can return the new mail that yes, so we can have like, so I think this is about 2 endpoints. We can have one last endpoint to get a mail. Basically we're getting the mail by ID. So what we're doing here is querying this dummy data.mails to like get a particular mail by the ID. So we can use the .find method .mails .find. So basically find mail where mail.id is equals to the ID that I have specified there. And you can return mail. And if mail is ever undefined, you can return an empty object. Yeah, so I think this gives us access to about 3 different endpoints. An endpoint to fetch all the mails, an endpoint to add a mail, and an endpoint to get a particular mail. So the last thing we need to do is just export this so that it can be easily imported. So we can call it mail service. And yeah, so we can do our git status. And we do our git add, and we commit as usual, and we say create mail service, and we push. By the time we check our version control, we should see it there. Yep, without even having to refresh, it shows up. I don't know, I just like refreshing. So we'll create a new pull request called create mail service, and we'll wait for this to be done. Then we create mail service and delete the branch. Now we are almost done. All that's left is to define the routes and the controllers. So I will start with defining the controller. The controller is very, very simple. The controllers will just basically be making use of this, guys. So let's check out back to master. We pull again. And once we are done pulling, we can create a new branch, which is going to be feature create mail controller. And as we have been doing, we create a new folder called controllers, because we have a number of controllers. So we can do mail.controller.js. And in here, we can have another object called mail controller, which is just basically an object that has different methods inside it. So the first controller is so let's first of all let's import the mail service. Oh god, sorry. Let's import the mail service here. So import mail service from, go up one level, services, and mail service. So we can do fetch all mails, which is basically going to contain, sorry about that, the request and the response. And I mean, this is as simple as returning response.json so that it returns a JSON. We can say something like status success and data. That should be the value of mail service. So we can create a variable called all mails first, which is going to be the result of mail service.fetch all mails. And we basically assign this to that. And it's as simple as that. And we have two more controllers to handle. The next is for adding a mail. Add a mail. Same template as the one on top. So we're going to assume that like we're going to be getting everything from the request body. So we expect the user to send in a JSON that is of this format. So we can say these are to comment in JavaScript though, multi-line comment. Expect JSON of the following of the format. So we expect a JSON that is like that has a name, some food, that has a size, large, and that has a price, which is basically 900 or something else. The ID will be generated by our service, so we don't have to worry about that. So we should be able to access this from request.body. So we can say new mail is equals to request.body. And for us to access the body of a request, we need to install a library called body parser. So it's good if we install that now. Body parser. So this gives us access to like the body of a request and URL encoded and some other things. So basically what we want to do here is basically return the response of mail service dot add mail, and we pass in new mail. But we want to return an actual API response, so we cannot just return this. We can assign this to a variable called created mail, and then we do something similar to this. Can just copy this and paste here, and the data here will be created mail. So the good thing about this is that like is that like you can add a status message. So usually for when you create something, the status is usually 201. When you fetch something, the status should be 200. So we have two controllers now. Fetch all mails, add a mail. The last one is get single mail, request.response. And we can get the mail. Let's do the API in such a way that like the user enters something like slash API. So we can version it slash API slash v1 slash mail slash say no, should we use slash? Yeah, we can use slash and he enters the ID. We can use slash and the user enters the ID. So if the ID is 1, he or she enters it from there. So which makes sense. So this can be known as request.params. dot id, and basically you can say found mail is equals to, we use the mail service here now again, mail service dot get a mail, and we're passing the id here, and then copy this return statement here as usual. We can format this nicely, and we copy it here, and this will be the found mail. And last but not the least, we export this object so that we can be able to access it. We are almost done with this API, and this really taking shape. So what we need to do now is do our git status as usual, git add, git commit, create mail controller. So all we need to do is just add the route, install body parser. Yes, so let's install body parser before we push. So we have already installed body parser. I believe we did that. Yeah. So let's just import it. We can import body parser from body parser. And basically this is the way to use it. Body parser.json. And that's all. So we can do a git status and commit this differently. I'm looking for the right commit message. Make use of body parser library. And once this is done, we can push to version control. And as you can see here, we are done with that. Create mail controller. Now the last thing we need to do is just to create a route, and we can be able to like test what we have on post one. So delete the branch as usual. Come back here. We should have everything we need. Nice. So let's check out to master. Then we'll pull from master. And once that is done, we can check out to another branch to create mail routes. Create mail routes. And this red. Oh, okay. I didn't know that was done. So we'll come here and as usual, create a new route, a folder called routes. I'm sorry, routes, and we'll basically be making use of express router here. So we can create a route for mail.route.js. So basically what we need to do is import express router. You can deconstruct it from express itself by doing this and creating an instance of it. Router and it's as simple as that. Then with the router object, we can now start linking our controller to our routes. So basically, we can have something like router dot get. So basically, for your meals, uh, since this is pertaining to meal, we would assume. So in the way we would install it, we would basically so the way to go is basically we export the router. Yeah. Then in the index we import it. So we see something like so can add a comment here. Import meal routes from routes mail dot route, and it's as simple as that really. The only thing that we have to do now is now to like remove. We can leave this guy here, so we can have something at our index route. Or we can do something like app.use, and we add a prefix for our routes. So we want all our routes to start with API v1, and because this is for the mail route, we now put mails, and we want it to be handled by the routes that we have imported. So it's also important to note that like you have to put your route in how you want them to be accessed. So basically, if we duplicated this and we put it here and we change it to something else, it's going to this is still what it's going to show because it basically wants the file from top to bottom. So it helps to always like arrange them in case you have similar routes, though which should never really happen in real life. So basically, we are prefixing that like all routes that start with slash API slash v1 slash mails should be handled by the mail route. So basically, in the mail route, this in the root means that like for API slash v1 slash mails, that is with nothing extra. For a get request, which is basically to get all. So this, I'm assuming from my own thinking, this should be like a fetch all mails. So basically, just go to our controller. I can close this, and we basically import our controller here. Though we haven't done that, so we can add a comment controller, import mail controller from controllers mail controller. So we can basically do something like mail controller dot fetch all mails. As simple as that. And for the add a mail, it's going to be a post request because we are creating something. Uh, so this should be 200, the status code. So add a mail should be this, and it should basically be add a mail. Whatever is going to be sent is going to be in the body. Then the last endpoint that we need is an endpoint to get the ID, to get a mail by ID, and that is all. So we can test this by starting the application. Oh, sorry, I meant to run this from outside. Oh, sorry. Uh, CD API. So I meant to run it from the API folder. So let's first try our index route. This works fine. If we try the oh that's weird. uh, oh so API slash v1. Yes. So we're having a collection of null objects for this. So which is weird. So if we take a look at that in the fetch all mails, so because we are creating an instance of this, so I guess um, the instance of the mail class isn't readable. That is why it's so. Let's try and console log this so we can see where the problem is coming from. This is also a good way to debug by using the console log statement to like see. So it's basically undefined, undefined, undefined. So let's see here. If we console log, oh yes. So at the end of the map, we are meant to return new mail. That was my bad. I'm sorry about that. So if we try this again, yes, we get all our mails, which is sweet. So we can add a new mail by putting it inside the body and adding a JSON. So we can say we want the name of the new mail. Sorry, it's to be salad. The size to be small, and I think salad is pretty expensive. I don't eat salad, so I don't know, but I would assume 400. So this should return to me, yes, normal salad, and you see it automatically increments it by 5. And if you look at what we had inside our dummy data, it stopped at 4. Now if you try to add another food, say so this is my best food, ewa. I just love this. So let's say 200. You can see that it incremented by 6, by 1, sorry. So that's why the idea of this is 6. So if we should get all the meals, you can see that we have everything here, the salad and the ewa. Now this is not saving inside an actual database. It's actually been persisted in memory, but it's a good idea. The last endpoint that we haven't tested yet is the get single um meal. And you can see it works fine. If you put an ID that doesn't exist, it returns. Oh, that's weird. That is weird. So this should not work. So this should not work. So if you look at the mail service, the get a mail. So basically, it's meant to return a mail where the mail ID. Sorry, this should be, yes. So this should return an empty object. I'm sorry about that. And this should return the right thing. Uh, if we use a double, yes. So I guess at some point it's a string and not a number. So that's why it's hard to compare. Yes. So this works fine now. And we can quit this. We can move all our console log statement. Um, Git status as usual. We've done quite a number of things here, but git add, git commit create mail route, and there we go. We have our API with 3 endpoints working fine. Um, so I'm just going to push, and yes, raise a pull request. I don't know why my internet is playing a little mind game on me. Okay, I haven't pushed yet. So origin ed, and you would see that like ed. So instead of having to type feature -create -mail route, I just use ed because it points to the current branch that you're on, as you can see from here. So it just makes my life easier. So create mail routes to plural. So usually your pull request description should be more descriptive, but I mean since this is a test, that's why I'm adding all this dummy single line statement and all. Yes, so we can git checkout to master, and git pull because we've added something. Yes, and this looks good now. Building an API is really simple, as you can see. My advice would be to fill in the README and like talk about setup instruction for the API, and that would be a good place to start. If you need to visit I would add a link to this repo in the video, in the YouTube video, so you can take a look at it. But that's about it. Thanks and bye.